So today I want to talk about slow, steady state exercise and the use of fat for our energy production. We've already discussed how fat goes from play into the body, but what are the recommendations on how much you should eat and what functions they actually have? We've already discussed how triglycerides break down into fatty acids, but within that lipid family there's also sterols, which produce cholesterol, which formate vitamin D, bile, and sexual hormones within the body. And there's also phospholipid, which create cell membranes and transport in the body. Fat has many functions outside of energy production. It's held viscerally inside of organs and subcutaneously just below the surface of the skin. It provides protection, insulation from the cold and from the heat. It nourishes our skin and our nails, our hair. It transports nutrients through the body. We have fat-soluble vitamins, A, E, D, and K, that can't get into the body without fat present. It also gives the taste and the flavor and the odor of food. Without that, food wouldn't be very tasteful and we wouldn't enjoy it as much. It also slows our stomach emptying. It gives us satiety. Okay, it keeps us full for longer. And it produces hormones such as testosterone and estrogen. We classify fats into saturated and unsaturated, or even polyunsaturated. This is the number of hydrogens that surround the carbon backbone. If it's fully hydrogenated, meaning hydrogens on every strand of that carbon, it is a saturated fat. It's more solid at room temperature and it is harder to digest by the body. If it is not fully saturated, meaning hydrogens are not all the way around and there's a double bond somewhere in that carbon chain, or even multiple double bonds, it is unsaturated or polyunsaturated. It's more liquid at room temperature and it's easier to digest. We also have essential fatty acids, omega-3 and omega-6. We commonly see these as your fish oils or flaxseed oils that are sold in pills at the supermarket. The recommendation for omega-3 is 1.6 grams a day for males and 1.1 grams for females. For omega-6, it is 17 grams a day for males and 12 grams a day for females. We also have health parameters. These are the blood work that the doctor looks at every time you go in. Total cholesterol, HDL, and LDL. We want that total cholesterol number to be under 200 milligrams per deciliter. HDL above 60 milligrams per deciliter, and LDL below 100. What do those mean? Well, LDL is low density lipoprotein. It is a protein carrier that carries a lot of fat. It is low in density because it's full of fat. A HDL has little fat on it. It's the same protein carrier that is not carrying much fat. We want more of those than we do the fat-rich carriers. In general, 20 to 35% of your diet should be from fat sources. Less than 7% should come from saturated fat. So the majority, unsaturated. The oils and the omegas, the plant-based sources are a lot better for you, and we recommend you intake those. So how does this apply to energy production? Well, through blood draws, we can see that when you're in a fasted state, cortisol levels, a hormone responsible for lipolysis, the breakdown of stored fat, is high. It releases fatty acids into the blood that can be used for energy production. However, when you consume food and break that fast, 70% of the released fat goes back into storage. However, when we exercise at low intensities, only 25% of the released fatty acids are resynthesized into stored triglycerides. We also see that as exercise increases, the stimulation of epinephrine and norepinephrine produces more lipolysis, and we don't get the subsequent restorage after exercise. In fact, only 25% of the released triglycerides go back into storage compared to the 70% when at rest. When we look at exercise intensity, at 25% VO2 max, 80% of our energy is derived from fatty acids, versus at 55 to 65% of VO2 max, it's the crossover point. We get half the energy coming from carbohydrate sources of glucose and glycogen, and half coming from our fatty acids. When exercise intensity is greater than 80%, over 75% of all the energy produced comes from glucose, 5%, and therefore less than 25% comes from fatty acids. Now this does depend on your diet. If you're highly fed in carbohydrate, you're going to have a lot of glucose resources, and the body's going to prefer to use those as the intensity increases. This is even more applicable to males, as we prefer to use carbs at a higher rate than females who prefer to use fat. This is why the crossover point is a range, 50 to 65%, as it varies based on the individual. So what are the recommendations for athletes on the day of competition? Well, there aren't really any. You need to consume your daily intake. There isn't much evidence to suggest that any fat intake any time before, during, and after exercise is going to enhance your performance. You just need to consume what you normally consume, what your body's used to. There is some debate that 45 to 85 grams of medium chain triglycerides during competition could enhance performance. But the evidence isn't convincing, and there's still a lot of discussion on that topic. So what we do know is get 20 to 35% of your diet consuming fat. Make sure that you're getting less than 7% coming from saturated sources, and make sure you're consuming your essential omega-3 and omega-6 daily. I hope this helps. If you have any questions, put it in the comments below and we can have more discussions. Like this video, share it, and have a great day.